All right, let me start over. Hi again. Hi, everybody, and thank you for joining us at the IMS LTI Roundtable for March 2022, where we'll be covering deep diving into deep linking. But before we get started, I just wanted to remind you that this meeting is held under the intellectual property rights policy adopted by IMS Global Learning Consortium, and that you can download a copy of that policy on the public website at imsglobal.org/IP. I would ask that anyone in attendance inform me if they are personally aware of any claims under any patent applications or issued patents that would likely be infringed by an implementation of the specification or other work product that is the subject of this meeting. You need not be the inventor of such patent or patent application in order to inform us of its existence, nor will you be held responsible for expressing a belief that turns out to be inaccurate. I'd also call your attention to the participant agreement. That one you can find at imsglobal.org/PA. That basically states that the work that we do here should not be shared outside of the membership. And I just wanted to point out, Bracken, that I love your little diving guy graphic here on the front page. It fills me with joy. All right, so I will hand it over to you, Bracken.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bracken Mosbacher. We're going to take a little dive into deep linking today. We get a lot of support requests and confused people about deep linking coming to us here at IMS. I'm hoping that today we can help give context to that and give some awesome demos to help all the future implementers know what's up. So deep linking. Here's what we're going to do today. First of all, I'm going to show you some slides to tell you that deep linking is the best, and then we're going to have a bunch of demos to show you that it's the best. So it's quite simple in the end. I am trying to be pretty high level here. I'll have a little bit of some technical details there, but I'm really just trying to give context about what deep linking is meant to solve and how it can be applied to solve your problems. So who needs deep linking? Everybody does. But any LTI tool that has more than one link to access content, you're the primary target. If you only ever have one link and it's like in the course nav or one single thing, this might not solve too many of your problems. But if you've got more than one, you got to get those into the courses. If you don't want your users to have to keep copying and pasting things, we hate that in the LTI community. No more copy and pasting. If you have instructional designers who go and set your courses up and they're all set and you don't have to do maintenance and add things to it, maybe you don't have as many deep linking use cases, but if your content's going to continue to be managed by people actively, it's really a great user workflow to help solve that. Maybe you made an awesome search interface and you want everyone to use it. Deep linking will be a great mechanism to make that available. Or if you don't support other mechanisms for moving your content around, like common cartridge or resource search. Platforms definitely want deep linking because it makes their users happy. And it can really help reduce integration support load. If your users don't have to understand your integration to use it, that's good. And then institutions don't really want their teachers and instructional designers to have to know about these technical standards to be able to create content in courses. And so institutions want deep linking that we're going to show so that their teachers don't have to think about deep linking or LTI or any of these things. They just want to build content and use the content. Right now, say you're an LTI tool and you make awesome content for your course and your teacher's in here and wants to add a couple links to lesson 2 of this module here. How it has gone in the past and still goes for many vendors is they'll click the little add content button inside the LMS. They'll say, I want to add an LTI link, an external tool, whatever the verbiage is for that context in that LMS. And they'll get a little dialogue that has a URL and a page name or a title. It'll be slightly different everywhere. And then the user's going to grab a URL, a page name, copy and paste those 2 values into there, hit submit, and now they've got their cool content in the LMS. That's an LTI link. That's great. It works. It works. Many LTI links have been created this way, but there's room for user error because there's copying and pasting, and people are going to start to get grumpy with that to do a lot of those. So how do the people currently get those URLs and those links? Well, there's a bunch of patterns out there. A couple I'll talk through are, for example, a courseware vendor employee can often email many links and URLs, LTI links to an instructional designer. I will call him Mr. Joshua, to import in those links to the course. So he'll paste that into the course, and we're happy we got that link. But here's the next story. They're like, oh, that worked. This is working great. Let's do it again. And so Mr. Joshua will paste in the first link and the second link, and so on. And if you've got lots of links, that's a lot of copying and pasting. That's a lot of interfaces, dialogues that gets really old really fast. And you're going to make your teachers, your instructional designers sad. They have to know things about LTI. That's no fun. But you can improve it. You don't have to use email. You can just send Mr. Joshua to the vendor's website, and you can just copy and paste each of those links over and over again in there, just like that. And so those are my sad stories to set up the happy story, obviously. But these are still very common patterns that exist out there. People are manually creating LTI links inside the LMS, and that's never fun. So deep linking is a content discovery workflow for your users. And the intent is that when they're in the context of creating their content, their courses, in their LMS is a primary work use case here, but it makes sense in a lot of other contexts as well. But they're in the context of building the course. They don't want to have to go to some different vendor, especially if they're working with multiple vendors. They don't want to have to deal with all these other logins and copying and pasting and stuff. And so what deep linking wants to do is embed into the workflows that exist in the LMS. And so if you have an add content button here in the LMS, you'd probably be able to add the native LMS features, a wiki page, a discussion topic, things like that. But right along those, the goal is to have content vendors listed and say, like, oh, look, I am getting Cengage content. So I just want to click add content in the course where I'm already building my course. And then you do an LTI deep linking launch. So in LTI, the normal LTI launch is a content launch. I want to view this item. In deep linking, what it is like, hey, I want to discover content. I want to do a deep linking launch. And since it's LTI, when the vendor gets this launch, they know who the teacher is, what the course is, what the institution is, so you can have the nature of your contract in that as well. And now you're able to show a nice search interface to that user because it's a normal LTI launch. You have all this context and you can show an interface. And within there, you just let them choose the things, you've obviously developed the coolest search interface and shopping cart that exists. They can interact there. And then when they're done, at the end of the deep linking workflow, that data is returned to the LMS in a deep linking response. And we'll talk a little bit about the technical details in a bit. And then those can just get added to your course. And so nowhere in this flow was there any copying and pasting. A teacher was just in their course wanting to build content. They were able to click a button and have an interface to help them find that content and get it into their course. And a great thing about deep linking is, in this example, I think, oh yeah, and then we all rejoice. In this example, we added 2 items at once. A great thing about deep linking is you can return 1 item or you can return many items. It can be an array of items, and there is varying support for that across LMSs. But that data can't really be structured. It's just, a list of items. And so it works great for this use case right here. We're adding a few items to lesson 2 and maybe, 1 and a few other places. But there's also a really great, I'll get to that in a second. So you can return multiple items, but it's just an array of items. There's no structure to it. Another great common use case out there is in the rich content editor of your LMS. And I just made this slide 10 minutes before the call, so I'm hoping my animation's going to work. But say you've got a rich content area and you want to add some vendor content or discover some content here. You could go to the website, copy an image, paste it in, or download an image, upload it. But if this platform supports deep linking, they can put icons up here to initiate deep linking launches. And then really in the end, it works exactly the same. They would click, add vendor content, you do an LTI launch, you show the search interface, you know who the user is, what they have access to, you return something, in this case, an awesome image, and now you've got your content in your rich content editor. And there's videos are a very common example of this. Images, and then you can also do LTI links and things like that. So really, any type of HTML content, anything that would make sense in that context is possible there. But again, the user's not having to go copy and paste stuff and be aware of, switch to HTML mode or hope the formatting comes over well. They just get to be in the same workflow they're in, and they don't have to think about the integrations between these systems. So back to the not having any structure to multiple items. This is another use case. I'm also the IMS architect for Common Cartridge, so obviously this is my favorite use case here. But it's common for content vendors to have lots of structured lessons. Maybe you're importing a whole textbook and you've got 10 links or 100 links across 10 chapters, and you've got all these things. For the current deep linking workflows, to get all those links in there, you'd be creating a module, importing all the lessons for it, creating another module, importing the lessons. And so that's still a decent workflow. But another example of what can happen is Common Cartridge. Common Cartridge can hold lots of structure and LTI links. And so it can, describe multiple modules, multiple links. And you could get a cartridge emailed to you. But that would look like that sad use case before, where you're downloading something and uploading it. Downloading and uploading is the same as copying and pasting, as far as I'm concerned. So there is also a great deep linking workflow that solves this. That's not as prevalent as I would love, but it exists out there. So say you're in your lessons area and there's no content. You could click add content and do the same deep linking flow we've seen, or it could go to maybe the import cartridge, the course management, the whole course import area of your LMS. And in there, you could either upload a cartridge that you downloaded from the website, or you could have a deep linking launch to a content vendor. And this would work exactly the same as the other ones. You do an LTI launch, you know what the course is, what the teacher is, institution, give them a search interface. But this time, they return a common cartridge, and which has many links and has the structure over it. And now, in your course, you can have your many lessons and your many items in those many lessons, and you still have, the normal, the more common deep linking workflow available there to just add individual items. So I really like to think of Common Cartridge deep linking as completing a full course management workflow. You can get the initial course in there with many links and structure, and you can really do lots of maintenance. You can remove items, add items, and make it really easy. So again, the teacher doesn't have to, or the instructional designer doesn't really have to be aware of how all these things work. They can just be using their system in the ways they are, and your content gets surfaced to them in their primary context. And that's, in that seamless management, the seamless workflows for users is the end goal of deep linking. I tried to work this into the last slide and couldn't, so it just gets its own slide because it's fun. So placements, I'm not going to talk too much about this. I mentioned 3 placements, places that deep linking can occur. The most common one is that main lessons or modules or folders, the content area for a platform. That's, you return an LTI link and you do LTI launches. Rich content editors are very popular as well in many contexts. That course import one. There's also many student-centered use cases. A lot of times we see deep linking as primarily teachers and instructional designers, and that is how it's most broadly used. But there's a lot of use cases where students are creating their own content in the LMS, or maybe they're creating content in another system that you just want to make available in the LMS, things like that. So there's a lot of great use cases around that. And I'll talk about a couple other future ones here. And I think there will be more in the future as well. So that's like the quick high-level overview of what deep linking is, some of the context it's meant to be used in, and some of the problems it solves. So I'm going to give just some quick technical details to kind of help you understand the flow of implementing deep linking, and then we'll get into the demos, which will really show this, and I think we'll really sell it. So first of all, Some LMSs have a little checkbox that says I support deep linking when you have your LTI configuration page, but the new cool way is to use dynamic registration. Dynamic registration is another quest against copying and pasting. Inside your dynamic, I'm not going to talk about dynamic registration too much. There's some great recordings on that already for these roundtables. But inside there, you can define the messages you support as a tool, and you can simply put LTI deep linking requests in there and the URL you would want them to launch to and what you would want the user to see the label and some other details as well. But this allows you, when you're registering as a tool, to say to the LMS, for example, I want my tool to be presented to the users in those workflows where they're creating content. And that's just a nice standardized way to do that now. And so I think we'll start to see more and more of this in the future. So dynamic registration, there's your quick plug for that. So how does deep linking actually work? So we're gonna gloss over the first part of it, but deep linking is an LTI launch. And so you do all the same stuff that you do in a normal LTI launch. But at the end, after you validated your ID token, your JWT, you'll see that the message type of this LTI message is LTI deep linking request. And inside there, there will be a claim. I just had perfect timing on muting a sneeze. Ooh, that was close. So it's a normal LTI launch. It says this is a deep linking request. And then there's a little bit, I'm going to show you what the JSON looks like, but there's just a little bit of data with settings from the platform that says what it's capable of with deep linking. So now as a tool, it's the same as if you're showing some content. You got an LTI launch, you validated it, and then you look at like, oh, this is deep linking. So instead of showing some specific content, I'm going to show my super awesome search interface. And so now the user's interacting on your system, finding the things they want, single item, many items, common cartridge, whatever it is. They find it, they do your experience, they submit it, and they're done. So they say, hey, tool, here's the stuff I want. And now what the tool does, when as a tool provider, you're always validating these JWTs that you get from the platform. But this is a context where you actually generate your own JWT, sign it with your private key, and you send it back to the platform in a form post. So it's kind of a reverse LTI launch. It's not exactly that, but almost. And so you do a form post, your JWT equals this JWT that you just created, and I'll show you what that JSON looks like. And so now as a tool, this is an interesting place where you are signing a launch message, essentially, and as a platform, you're now validating a launch, a JWT package. And so those, this is one of the only few places that the platform does that in the current LTI suite, I guess. And so that is something to pay attention to. So it gets there, the platform validates the JWT, and then they put the resource into the context that they're in. And so what I'm really trying to emphasize here is it's a normal LTI launch. It tells you in the message what the message type is. And then you're just returning back with another signed JWT. So I'm going to show you real quick what the deep linking claim and what this response might look like. And I have some slides, but I'm going to actually hop over to the website. So this is the LTI project page, and in here there is the deep linking specification. And so we're just going to go in here and check this out real quick. So I'll talk through some of this, but the great examples and a great way to just kind of get a basic understanding is, again, LTI launch. It's a normal LTI launch, but so here's all the normal LTI launch data. Ooh, oh yeah, let me make this bigger. Normal LTI launch data. This looks nothing different than the other things. And then this is the deep linking claim. And so this is the only thing that makes really a deep linking launch different from other LTI launches, is it contains this configuration. And I'm trying to emphasize that to show you that it's not a high implementation burden if you've already implemented core LTI. It's just another message type with some more data. So let's go through some of this. And this whole document describes all this in great detail, so I'm not going to go into it too deeply. But there's a deep link return URL with that place that you are returning. Let's have this up. What you return to in the end, that's that deep linking return URL. accept types, so you can say what types of things you support. So often if you're in the main lessons area, you're only going to support LTI resource link. But if you're in the rich content editor, maybe you support all kinds of things. And these accept types are defined in the specification. So if you look over here, these are the content item types that we have defined via specification, but you can have your own custom types as well. So you can see that those kind of align to this example here. You can also have media types. So you say you accept images, but you only want JPEGs, things like that. This is the platform informing the tool the ways that it's capable of embedding this content in an iframe, a window, an embed, things like that. I mentioned not all platforms support returning multiple items in content item, and some do only in certain contexts, like maybe not in the lessons area, but they do in the rich content editor. And so as a tool, this is just to let you know whether they're going to accept multiple. And then auto creates, some workflows on the platform side, when you return, they create the artifacts from deep linking right away, and they show it to you. Some of them return that content, that data into their edit workflow, and you still have to hit save. And so auto create is just kind of implying to you, like, it's possible when this returns, it's going to get saved. It's also possible the user will be an interface to change it. And then in the response, so that's the request. This is the unique data that the platform sends to the tool. And the tool, when you're sending the data back, again, all this is defined in the specification, but it's, here's the kind of generic kind of LTI message information. Deep linking response is the message type. And then you get an array of content items. And a content item, each of these is defined, again, in this area right here, all the properties and what their intent is. So this is just a web link to this HTML page. It can return an icon and a thumbnail. A lot of platforms won't actually utilize those, some will. So there's a lot of extra stuff in here that not everyone supports. An HTML chunk, that's great. A link, just another web link. And this one is saying, hey, I want this to be embedded. Here's some HTML. You can imagine, YouTube videos, that's how you do that commonly. Let's see, what's another? I want to get there. Here's the LTI link one. So here's an LTI link one. I need to really fix the indentation on this documentation. LTI links are probably one of the more common items that will be returned via deep linking. And you can get a launch URL, you can do an icon thumbnail. The cool thing to really emphasize here is the line item aspect. So if your LTI link has an associated grade with it, you can include a line item in your deep linking response with the details of that line item. And this can really be the same as if you're using the assignments and grades API to create line items. You can see it's got the tag, the resource ID, the label. It's the same data. It's just kind of in a different workflow than you're using assignments and grades for. And so creating line items in a response is a great example of the workflow. And you can just define the custom variables and a bunch of all the LTI stuff. So again, the best way to understand this is to look at the documentation. This describes all the properties and what's there, and some often, the nuances of what platforms support and what they don't support. So it's not always perfectly straightforward. But again, the flow is an LTI launch, and then you just do a return with a signed JWT at the end of that flow. And that's how you implement deep linking. So we're about to get to demos. There is a lot of exciting stuff happening in deep linking world, I think. We're working on an edit workflow. Right now, the spec only defines, adding new content, but it's pretty common that you want to edit stuff you added to a course. And so an edit workflow is being discussed. Another exciting one is a deep linking service. That would allow other workflows than just the instructional designer starting the LMS. Maybe they can start in the tool and push stuff in. There's a lot of interesting use cases around deep linking service. And if that sounds interesting to you, let us know. We're looking for people who would be interested in helping with that. If there's lots of content and you want to push it all in, there's some interesting course copy affordances from the deep linking service. You could maybe get a launch from the new course for the first time, and you can use a deep linking service to go discover all the active links you have in the course, maybe something like that. So there's a lot of interesting conversations going on here, and we invite you to come be involved. I think in the future we'll want it to be easier to define or new types or publish custom types, things like that. I think as a community, we want to be able to iterate on that without having to update the whole spec document or update, iterate on the spec itself. And I think new contexts for workflows. I mentioned those placements earlier where, the lessons area, rich content editor, I think there's room for other ones. One that makes sense is an LTI tool that's an app store for discovering new LTI tools that return dynamic registration URLs, things like that. There's other contexts where these workflows make sense to tie applications together via LTI. And I think we'll start to see those as it becomes more prevalent. But now it's time for the demos. So deep linking is part of LTI Advantage, and that means it's actually fairly broadly implemented across all the platforms and many, many tools as well. And so my goal today is to get as many demos in front of you as you can to start to really understand how deep linking ties these systems together. And so for that, we've got 4 folks that will have perfectly seamless transitions in sharing screens today. So we're going to start with Martin Leonard and at Turnitin, and he's going to maybe show a couple LMSs, and he might tie some in the technical details. Then Claude at Cengage is going to show lots of LMSs right after each other. It's going to be awesome. And it's just going to we're just trying to show off, hey, this is everywhere and you should use it. Well, I think we're going to see a rich content area demonstration for Maggie at Desire to Learn, and then Dr. Chuck will show us something new that's been super secret for a long time with Sakai and Canvas. And so, we're like the 3rd wave of learning Dr. Chuck's new cool secret. So we should all be excited about that. And then we'll be done and happy to answer questions or have any surprise demos if we have time. So just to make sure we have time for the demos, I'm not going to take questions now. I'll answer in chat happily. So Martin, take it away.
All right. There you go. Seamless transition to sharing screen. Okay, so I'm just going to demo this in Canvas and in Blackboard, just to show what the deep linking flow looks like in a couple of different LMSs, and kind of what the ideal flow is for our particular use case and how Turnitin uses deep linking. So you can see here I'm in Canvas and actually going to show something that's fairly new to Canvas, a new flow that they've added for deep linking to improve the creation flow for instructors. So I'm in Canvas, I'm in a course called Martin's course. I'm looking at my list of assignments. So I could click on an assignment here to create a Canvas assignment, or there are these 3 little dots next to that, which have external content. So I am going to create a Turnitin Feedback Studio assignment instead. And this is going to do a deep linking launch to Turnitin. So Turnitin works in a slightly different way to a publisher. So a publisher has existing content that you're wanting to pull into your course. In the case of Turnitin, you're creating a Turnitin assignment that your students are going to submit to, upload to, and be graded on. So in this case, you're going to go through and actually create the assignment itself. So I can just call this deep linking demo. I can give it a score. I can also include the custom settings within Turnitin, so things like anonymous marking, paper repositories, things that you would never want to have a platform have to implement settings for, because student paper repository is unlikely to be necessary for any other tool other than Turnitin. So because of that, allowing us to show our own UI, our own settings, and have the instructor or course creator go through and select everything that they need. So you can exclude all sources, do whatever you want. And once you're done with that, I can say submit. So we're only creating one piece of content here, one assignment at a time. We don't make use of the multiple pieces of content at the moment. So you can see this was one that I created earlier, but this is the one that I've just created now. So I've just created this deep linking demo, and And this piece of content, which in our case is a Turnitin assignment, has now been added to this course, which when we access it is now here with all of the settings. So you see the student has been ported in, but if I go into the settings, it has all the dates, the matches, anything else that you select, all gets ported in to the assignment. So similar thing from Blackboard's point of view. So this is a course in Blackboard. And for adding content, again, I can click on this little plus, I can go create, and that would create a Blackboard course, or I can go and add content. And the content market is external content. So you can see there are a bunch of tools installed here. Again, I'm going to select Turnitin, and we'll see the same UI that we had in Canvas to say I want to create a deep linking demo. I'm going to give it 101 points this time. I can change the due date and set it sometime in the future, and then save it. And now you can see that piece of content again has been created straight away. And when we launch in, those same settings will have been ported over. So the way that you actually handle those settings can vary from tool to tool, depending on how the tool wants to implement it. So the tool may want to create the resource during the deep linking flow and say, I have this existing piece of content, or I have a new piece of content that's just been created. Here is an ID for it. And when you place the content item back into the platform, you can say, hey, this is the reference to my ID. So when the launch comes through, you look at that reference and say, oh, I recognize that ID. It points to this piece of content on my server. Alternatively, the way that Turnitin actually does it is when you select all of your settings, we send all of those settings back encoded as custom parameters back to the platform, and then the platform sends them back to us. They're just key values, opaque to the platform, so the platform doesn't have to read them all or understand what the meaning of those values are. We just say, these are the values for this piece of content, and the first time someone comes in and accesses an assignment, we read off those values and say, do we need to create the assignment? Yes, we do. We create it with those existing settings that were given. So you can see like the date, for instance, has been passed. You'll also notice a couple of these values are grayed out. That's because during deep linking, we have the option of passing back some information like dates, the title, and if the platform wants to own that data or has space for that data to live, like the dates, for instance, it can take those and we can use custom substitution parameters to pass back an updated version of that data to the tool and overwrite the tool's settings. So that's basically
Awesome.
it for I don't know.
Thanks,
So
Martin.
you'll probably see the same platforms again, but with a slightly different use case for deep linking from Claude.
Yes. So we've seen deep linking in the context of a creation. But deep linking doesn't really care what you do once you're on the tool side, as long as you return something when you come back. So Turnitin is you go and you create something and you return the definition or pointer to that thing. In our case, as Martin pointed out, we're more in the picker flow, in the picker things where you launch and you basically pick the kind of deep links to resources, to Cengage resources you want added to your course. So I'm going to go through 5 LMSs doing exactly the same thing. If touching wood, all will work perfectly. So let's get started on that one. So we're going to start with D2L. So here I'm in Brightspace and I'm saying I want to add some Cengage content. So I'm going to click on here and this is my deep linking launch. And now here you see I can browse as Brackets was mentioning you can search, you can add content. So it's all this discovery side on our side to discover the content. But here, I'm going to pick some content from a MindTap courseware platform I've already registered. So here in this MindTap courseware platform, there are a bunch of activities. And eventually this will show up. Unless someone removes the plug on QA, which would be bad timing at this specific time. Maybe Josh, you gave me back. You gave me.
Oh, no. This is just the magic of live demo, Claude. I can't be played for this one.
I hope nobody removes the QA plug at that time. But all right. So you know what? That's too bad. That's
but did
really
you turn it off and turn it back on again?
Yes, let me try again. Just did it a minute ago and it was fine. Anyway, okay, well, that's a bummer because if someone removes QA, it's going to be. So let's go to Blackboard and cross fingers and we go back to D2L after. So in here in Blackboard, same kind of thing. I'm going to go to the content market. I'm going to pick some content and here's this one here. So this open up on our side and you're going to see the same interface. Well, that you did is to be able to pick content here. And you see here, I have two products I've adopted in this course. I'm going to go in this one. And I'm going to pick. I don't know what's happening.
Okay, maybe it is my fault. I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, that's fine. This one worked. Okay. Something I know. Okay, so here I'm going here and I say, okay, I want to pick some things here. So you see here you have the choice to add a gradebook column or not. If you say to include a gradebook column, then we will include in the deep linking response the information to create a gradebook column. If we say you don't want a gradebook column, just a link to the content, and we will not include the line item information in our deep linking response, so that just the content link is created. So you bring those two in here, you go back, you continue, and this is a deep linking return that goes back to Blackboard, and we're going to have a screen that to validate that we want to add those two links to our course. In here, and you see those are 2 points, 3 points. I says, okay, that's fine, and they added to the course. And if there were dates attached to those activities, the dates would carry over also. So here we have our two links added to Blackboard. So we can carry on and do the same thing in Moodle. So here I am in a Moodle course. I want to add some activity. And I don't know if I should use QA, but let's try again. Let's go to QA.
It's warmed up now, Claude. It's ready.
Yes, I'm going to select some content out there. And then the same interface. You know, you want to select content from one of those courses. You say, yes, I want to pick up from this one. And if all goes to plan, we should see this list. Yes, and now here I'm going to pick a two. And so Moodle, like all those LMSs we've seen so far, supports multiple return. Actually, in deep linking, there is a flag that tells you if you can return one or multiple. So all of those right now supports multiple. So you can return two activities here, return back to Moodle. And Moodle will tell you, oh, okay, if you want to add those two things into your course, and you say, you see the line item information was tells you that also to create that this activity will be gradable. So they need a gradebook column worth 2 and 3 points. And I say save and return to course. And those two links will be added to my course in Moodle now. Here they are. And a gradebook column are also being created for those activities. So then we can carry on, and exactly the same code in Canvas now. And in Canvas, you're going to be using, yes, this new extensions that Xander has been actively working on to allow us to do deep linking from the to import multiple items at a time. So you see here, I'm going to say, okay, bring some content into my course. So same flow here. So it should open before it goes to plan. This machine, but this is running because this is new development is running out of my machine now. So hopefully this is going to work. It's not my day. Yes, it's showing up. Okay. All right. I think Zoom is taking a lot of my computer. So I go select content. Same thing here. I'm going to bring a couple of graded activities back into Canvas. By doing that, once I continue, and you notice I'm doing import from the module area, but I'm bringing graded items. And so what Canvas is going to do is that not only is going to import those modules, but it's also going to create the relevant assignments, because those are graded activities. So it will create the assignment and actually have modules that are linked to this assignment. So you don't need to import assignments in the assignment area. You can import graded activities in the module area. And here they are, those two rows and here, and they've been also added as assignments right here. So you can basically, from the modules, you can bring graded and not graded activities. If it's graded, Canvas is going to inject an assignment wrapper around those LTI links. And as Martin pointed out, you can just bring graded activities directly also from here. And finally, then there is Sakai also. And so I don't know exactly if I'm running the latest version here, but when you go to Sakai, same thing here, you open it up. The version I have right now is going to be loading. But yeah, I think this version right now only supports one item at a time. But I should be there pretty soon. Well. Yeah. So, but yes, eventually it will show up and you'll see that you can bring back a link back in Sakai. Also the same way. I don't know what's happening on.
So Claude, this
it's lunchtime for my servers. Oh, here they are. You see, that's where this flag is important, because it says multiple false or multiple true. And it's important for a tool to be able to understand that and adapt the UI, especially if it's a picker UI, to respect the flag. So in this case here, it's only one at a time. So you see it's a radio option, right? And I can return, and I have that one added to my Sakai course here also, right there. So showing up here, right? And that's it. So, and yes, so that's okay. I think you got the idea. Sorry for D2L, but I know Maggie, you do some demo too. So. But anyway, so you see here how the picker flow, the same code across all platforms, you know, to bring stuff. Oh, look, that worked now. So that was, you know.
Hey, go ahead and finish that, Claude. So and Claude volunteered to show this across 5 LMSs, and was very brave of him. And I'm impressed it went as smoothly as it did, Claude. That's a lot of fate to put in the hands of 5 LMSs. But I wanted him to do that because you got to see that he's just using the same workflows that exist in all of those systems, and Cengage is able to just kind of plug into those things that already exist. And it was really cool to see all those right after another, Claude. That was amazing.
Yeah, and I just want to mention here, because not all of them had date sets, but some LMSs among all of those support the ability to specify a due date on when you create a line item. So you see, for example, D2L is one of them. So it imported the due date from the courseware platform, and now here it's been imported right there, and you know, and with graded red columns and stuff. So that's it for the demo. You know. Awesome. Bring me more LMSs, please.
Okay. Okay. Stop sharing, please, Claude. So yes, Maggie can take over, and then Maggie from Desire to Learn is going to show rich content editor area, I think, which will be excellent. Welcome, Maggie.
Hi. Sorry, just looking for the unmute button. All right. So I'm going to look at rich content. So I'm going to create a file, name it however I want. And we can insert using deep linking. So we can do pretty boring insert with our test tool and insert just a link, just an LTI resource link. Not all that interesting, but we can insert it in a file. We could add a sentence around this saying, hey, click this awesome link. We can also, with a different, much more interesting tool, we can insert an LTI resource link. This one's going to have some placement advice. So this one is going to actually show up straight in an iframe embedded for us rather than just that boring link we've got.
And is that an actual LTI launch iframe? Or
This is an LTI launch iframe.
Beautiful.
Yes. And then we can also, going back to our test tool, just insert an HTML fragment, which is just going to play a YouTube video, nothing LTI related at all. It's just some simple HTML. And there we go. Now, if we save this, better name. I've tried this out a few times. Yeah, so this right here is just doing an embedded launch. We've got our YouTube video, no LTI involved, and then we still have our LTI links. So you can insert whatever you want into this HTML editor, all using deep linking. And that's it.
Awesome. Thanks, Maggie. In the rich content editors, there's a lot of possibilities there, and most of the LMSs support that as well. And so, especially for content providers, that's a great area to target beyond just the modules or lessons area. Thanks, Maggie. That was awesome.
Yeah, and
right.
the interesting thing. The interesting thing with those kind of embedded LTI links is that means that the tool can have a lot of concurrent LTI launches happening at the same time. Usually you think of you go to an LTI launch and you come back, but here, by displaying a window, you can have a bunch of iframe kicking launches. So make sure your launch are not dependent on one another or like step writing on a cookie or something like that, that you could create some trouble, right? So, but yeah, you have concurrent launches that happen. And whose dog was that?
That's my dog. That's little Willow.
Good.
Hey, Dr. Chuck, you're finishing us up here. I don't know that we're going to have too much time for questions after, but the work group's always happy to answer deep linking questions. So go ahead, Chuck.
Or do you want to mute?
Are you muted, Chuck? Yes, you are.
Yes, I'm muted, and now I'm not. Somebody else needs to be unmuted, but we're good now. Okay, so I'm going to show you something that's a little different. It's something we call Sakai Plus, and the idea is two LMSs side by side. Certainly, I'm not the first person to think of this. Eric tells me that there's some Cengage product that sort of works this same way. That's like just an LMS on the side. And I think this is I'm doing sort of research on what it means to have an entire LMS, not just a little tool or a link to content. And I'm excited because I went to ASU to a workshop on the future of learning, and they're all being in a virtual reality, right? They want to create a biology environment. And these virtual reality people are not really just going to create a tool or an endpoint, and they don't want to just link each thing in. They really want a whole LMS on the side with a few maybe shortcuts into that LMS. And so that's what I'm going to show you today. I am going to show you, first, I'm going to show you Sakai. And this is Sakai, and it has Canvas as a tenant. So Sakai is functioning as a tool. And so you can see the Canvas configuration URL. You can see the IMS dynamic provisioning URL. Dynamic provisioning works in Moodle, Sakai, and D2L, soon Blackboard, and Canvas has their own thing, which turns out to work really well. And I support both of those things. So you go plug this in to your LMS, and you end up sort of plugging this thing in, and you get all kinds of cool placements and what kind of links to launch on that stuff, and away you go. So this is basically Sakai as an LTI tool in Canvas. And this should say Sakai Plus, but I don't know how to change the name of it. I'm just not that expert in Canvas. But first you'll see, in a sense, a launch that in it will include LTI 1.3, assignments and grade service, and names and roles, all in the blink of an eye. And so at this moment, Sakai has created a course, downloaded all of the students, and created, in a sense, a parallel universe to what's in Canvas right now. And I can add new records here, or I can just like update a grade because I don't have much time. So I'll just update a grade in Sakai, and you will see that when I go back into grades in Sakai, this student has an 85 now. So there's a full synchronization of grades going back and forth. You can teach in this as much as or as little as you like. Now, where deep linking comes into this is you could want to lead students to certain things in here. And so there is also a provisioned deep link to that course instance sitting there in Sakai. And so I can just go the normal way, say, give me an external tool. Let me have this from Canvas. And I would like to take the Sakai, new Sakai, let's just do resources. And this is just some debugging, and away we go. And then we've got resources, and I click on it. And the interesting thing is this is the same instance. It's the same. So I can either play with this in resources and upload files in Sakai, or I can upload files into my Sakai site through Canvas. And so, like everybody, watch me do this in. So I want this to put Sakai up here at the button, but Eric and I are working on that, but it's right now over here on the far side. And you will see that when I do this very same thing and provision to a slightly different server, but I can go in the grade book and I can somehow, any way that Sakai can generate a grade, 87 points, you can go then back to the grade book in Canvas, in Blackboard, and see it happen. And then I can go into Moodle. And it's all set up there as well. I can add an activity as an external tool, and I can go to Sakai Plus, and I can say, select the content, and I can say, I would like the Sakai conversations tool to be plugged in. And so it's coming back, and let's just save and display and hope this works. And there is our, please, 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 please. Yes, okay. Somehow it detected it was supposed to go into dark mode, but that's the Sakai Conversations tool. It's our rewrite of Piazza. And so that's that. If I have another minute, I can show something that, if I have another few seconds, I can show something really quick that was asked in the chat that wasn't originally part of my my demo, but because of
is it the common cartridge upload part?
It's the common cartridge upload.
Then you definitely have a minute, Chuck.
Okay. So I want to show you. So this is my production course. Okay. And I have this website that has all my content called www.dj4e.com. And this exports a common cartridge, but it also exports all of the content in my course. And so this is like my publisher. This is my repository of all of my content for my Django that I use in Coursera, I use in Canvas, I use all over the world, and let people use it and plug it into their Moodles and Canvases all over the world. So I have this integrated in with an LTI launch that I tell Canvas I can return a common content item. Now, Canvas doesn't do the IMS protocol for this. Canvas has their own protocol that predates deep linking doing this, but literally talking to Canvas and talking to everybody else using IMS, the code on the publisher side is really easy. So what I do each Friday morning is I say, oh, I am going to import content from Django for Everybody, which is that website. I'm going to select the content. I'm going to pick a course, and when I click this button, Canvas.
That's the LTI launch right there.
Well, that was the LTI launch, but I've now returned, and I told Canvas that there is a URL, and at this moment, while it's working, it is retrieving the URL that has a common cartridge. Okay, and we just have to wait, and we have to wait, and we have to wait, and we have to wait. Now you see select content, and what Canvas has done at this moment is pulled the entire cartridge across from my server, and then has given me all of this information, and I pick a couple things, just like you kind of saw Claude do, except what's going on here is this is Canvas's user interface. This is not my.
That's a cartridge selection interface, not an LTI one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is I'm pulling the pieces of the cartridge. This is just something Canvas does, which is really cool. And so I'm not going to do it because this is like my live class.
And we're out of time now too, but that is a beautiful import interface, I must say.
Yeah, I know who wrote that. I'll stop sharing now.
So we're out of time. That was amazing demos, everybody. I can't believe that went so well. I think it really shows off how well you can actually integrate these systems. And I loved your dual platform sync going on there, Dr. Chuck. That's awesome. So thank you, everybody. We're gonna hit stop on the recording.